My FPL Game Week 8 first transfer plans, my first thoughts going into the international break. I've got 3 free transfers, but a few things happened in Game Week 7 which definitely changed my thinking. Is Bukayo Saka now going to take every Arsenal penalty and it not be Gyokeres who's in my team? Bruno Fernandes fails to return once again and now has Liverpool after the international break. Iliman and Dye and Everton clawed it back at the end, but still I'm a little bit disappointed in them. A few other picks that I'm looking at, like Anthony Gordon, like Enzo Fernandez, and what's going to happen with Cole Palmer, and will he be back anytime soon? What is up, everyone? FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 2,000 likes is the aim, and subscribe if you are new to the channel. And just as a bit of a timestamp and a bit of disclaimer, I'm recording 10 minutes before Manchester City versus Brentford is about to kick off. In terms of how my game week 7 has gone, I am on a completely flat arrow at the moment. Luckily, the Iliman and Dye goal late on against Crystal Palace not only wiped out the Crystal Palace clean sheet when I had Richards on my bench, but it also gave me an Iliman and Dye return. He did then later get booked. He's very close to getting 1 bonus point, so let's see if he holds onto that. But I do still have Erling Haaland captain still to play in that fixture, and I also have Reinders. So a return from particularly Reinders, because Haaland as captain is in pretty much everyone's team and doesn't massively impact my rank. But Reinders does have the ability to potentially get me into the top 1 million going into the international break. So that's where we're at. That's why it still says TBC in terms of my rank, because there is still a match to go at time of recording, but it won't change what I'm planning on doing in my transfers. I've already got a double up on Manchester City, and I don't plan on buying a third one. And I also don't have any plans to buy any Brentford players for the next few fixtures. So starting off with my team. So actual points last week, the Arsenal defence came in with a clean sheet at home to West Ham, and they looked really solid for it. Zubimendi in particular, I was really impressed with in that game, and I think he just makes them really strong defensively. Him and Declan Rice in that midfield, plus the great defence that they are building, of course, that we've seen not only this season, but in the past couple of seasons. I'm very happy with them. So Raya and Gabriel are in. Richards was on my bench, but they continue to still look great defensively. After the international break, they won't have had just a Thursday early turnaround. So I do have Richards in there. My other 2 defenders are Anderson against Arsenal and Tarkowski against Manchester City. So those 2 are on the bench. We are starting Richards. And then we've also got Senesi of Bournemouth away at Crystal Palace. Unfortunately, he got taken off early when Bournemouth were chasing the game on Friday night against Fulham. So he didn't get defensive contributions. So now no player has had 7 out of 7 defensive contributions so far this season. But I'm pretty happy with how that defense looks. If you actually look at the fixtures going into game week 8, I actually think a lot of them are quite difficult to call, particularly when you look at it from a defensive point of view. Now, you would probably say that you'd like a Manchester City defender at home to Everton, and absolutely, I would like to have a Gvardiol in my team or a Donnarumma potentially, but I'm not going to use a transfer to buy one of them. The other one that you could look at potentially is Newcastle, but they do go away to a Brighton side who have been pretty good defensively, pretty good going forward so far this season. And the other one maybe is someone like a Virgil van Dijk, who I have spoken about going up against a Manchester United team, but I've not been very impressed with Liverpool defensively. So from a clean sheet point of view, I don't mind how my defense looks. I've always said that when I wildcarded, I was hoping to build a defense I don't really need to use a transfer on, and I don't think I really need to at the moment. Tarkowski looks like he might get a 5-pointer against Crystal Palace despite not keeping a clean sheet, because he got defensive contributions and he might be getting 1 bonus point depending on how that goes. It's very, very close between him and the likes of Iliman and Dye and Jake O'Brien in that fixture. So apart from maybe looking at a Tarkowski replacement at some point, I am pretty happy with the defense I've built at the moment. But of course, Tarkowski at his price, I'm not sure about it, but he's on my bench this week. Into midfield, so Semenyo has been a crazy pick. The amount of returns he's getting, just very happy with him. I don't really need to talk about him. Gianni Reinders at his price still remains absolutely fine. He's got Everton at home in game week 8, so I will definitely be holding him for that fixture alongside Erling Haaland. Very happy with that sort of core, I think, going into next week. The only thing is I am playing Semenyo away to Crystal Palace, who have been very good, but Semenyo is almost everyone's team, so it doesn't mean too much. Then the other 4 players are probably the 4 that are the biggest talking points in my team. Stack on the bench, I suppose the 5th. He's not likely to get in my team very much. He could play for me this week. I wish I'd gone with Saka, who's got Wolves at home this week and just looks like a much better pick than Stack, but I don't think it's worth moving sideways. he could play for me over this week, over Iliman and Dye, over Bruno Fernandes with their difficult fixtures, because from game week 9 onwards, both Man United and Everton have quite nice runs starting again. They just both have a difficult fixture this week. At the moment, I am benching Stack though, because I haven't seen very much in the 2 weeks that I've owned him to really make it worthwhile me starting him when you do have Fernandes and Ndai, probably both on penalties. There is a bit of uncertainty about Bruno. So let's talk first of all about Iliman and Dye. He's on penalties. He still has a little bit of DEFCON appeal. The upcoming fixtures are not bad. I don't love him, and I don't love having double Everton because I've not been that impressed with them, despite the fact that they turned that fixture against Crystal Palace around. I am looking at potential replacement, and if I was to sell him, it would probably make more sense for me to sell him this week away at Manchester City rather than waiting to do it in a couple of weeks when maybe his fixtures look a little bit better. Similarly for Bruno Fernandes, in game week 9 onwards, the fixtures start to turn and actually look a little bit better once again for Manchester United. But in game week 8, of course, they have Liverpool away. Now, Liverpool didn't defend particularly well, and he has been a little bit unlucky. He's missed 2 penalties and had a worldie saved from quite a high XG chance once it was on target in the game in game week 7. But he is just disappointing. And if Ruben Amorim is going to stay, I still don't feel like I want him in my team very much longer. Of course, there is still a chance that Ruben Amorim isn't Manchester United manager for much longer, but a win over Sunderland probably keeps him in a job for a few more games, and almost certainly feels like it will keep him in a job for that Liverpool game. And we're going to have Bruno playing central midfield. He only hit 11 DEFCON, which actually got reduced, I think, till 10 or 9 on Sunday. So he's definitely not getting those points, it doesn't feel like. So Bruno and Ndai are probably the ones I'm most frustrated by. Then we're moving up front. Starting off with João Pedro, I'm not selling João Pedro. I know some of you will not like the returns he's got recently. He's basically had no good attempts in any of the matches recently, but he's not going on Brazil international duty. He's suspended for the next Champions League game. And when you look at the next run of fixtures that Chelsea have for about the next 10 game weeks, having a piece of the Chelsea team looks like a really good idea. And I am eyeing up a move for Enzo Fernandez, but I think that would be in combination with João Pedro rather than as an alternative to him. And the other one is Gyokeres. Saka, in his 200th game, wanted his 100th goal or assist and took the penalty that I thought that Gyokeres was going to take. Now, there is a clip, and I've seen it, and I've posted it on Twitter, which does show that Saka and Gyokeres, just like in the Newcastle game, they did have a discussion about who was going to take it. And there is some Arsenal fans still saying that, Saka 200 games, it was his 100th goal or assist for the club in his 200th match. He was definitely going to take it, which, if it is true, is a reasonable narrative to create. But I'm not impressed with Gyokeres. I don't think he had very much in that game. And if he's not going to take penalties, he then isn't worth the money that I'm paying for him. It's just whether I think it's worth 2 transfers to switch him, because I do want an Arsenal attacker. So it would be selling Gyokeres in order to buy Saka, and I could do it, right? Gyokeres and Fernandes out to buy a couple of players, and it is something I'm considering. So generally looking at my team, if I had 5 transfers, maybe I'd consider selling Stack or Tarkowski, but it's not really worth it when I've only got 3. Gyokeres, Iliman Ndiaye, and Bruno Fernandes are the 3 that I'm wondering about selling at the moment. Bruno, just because Man United still don't look that great. Iliman Ndiaye because it's City, and I still don't love the way that he's been playing the past couple of games. And Gyokeres, 9 million if he does lose penalties. Saka is just a much better option at Arsenal. So just to put that into a little bit of a ranking, good to see that after a wildcard, I'm pretty happy with a lot of my players. So Dubravka, Haaland, Reinders, Raya, Gabriel, Senesi, Semenyo, Richards and Anderson are all definite keeps for me at the moment. I don't think David Raya is definitely worth the money, and he's actually close to rising up to 5.7. And if he hits that, there's almost no world in which I'd go buying him now. I'd go for someone like a Pope, or I'd go for even someone like a Sanchez, who might even drop down to a 4.8 million. And we're going to talk about a wildcard draft in a few days' time, and I will not have David Raya in it if he goes up to 5.7. But in terms of monitors and maybe sells, monitors, I'm monitoring Stack, I'm monitoring Tarkowski, and I am monitoring João Pedro. I'm not going to sell João Pedro this week. Playing against a Forest team who don't look very good at the moment. Plus, well, let's see what happens with Ange Postecoglou at Nottingham Forest. But the upcoming fixtures for Chelsea do remain good. He's not going to Brazil, which it looks like is what he needs. And then he doesn't play in the next Champions League game. The 3 maybe sells that I've spoken about: Iliman Ndiaye away to City this week, Bruno Fernandes away to Liverpool this week, and Gyokeres to be honest, away at a Fulham team this week who rarely get a lot of goals put past them, despite the fact that they did on Friday night. So that's generally how I'm feeling about the wildcard. A lot of the picks I'm pretty happy with. Even the ones in Monitor, I'm still pretty happy with them. It's probably just Ilman and Dye, Fernandes and Gyokeres who I'm looking at selling. And coincidentally, I have 3 free transfers, which I could use on all 3 of them. So in terms of those potential replacements, we're actually just going to start off in defense. I'm not going to sell Tarkowski this week, I don't think, unless for some reason I needed the money. The ones that I'm having a look at, I've spoken a little bit about Van Dijk, and I still like them long-term fixture-wise, but I'm not being that impressed with them defensively. And without Alisson in goal, it just weakens them a little bit. So I don't feel like I need to make that transfer now. I'll probably wait closer to the sort of game week 12 fixture swing that we have for Liverpool and maybe target it more towards then. And I don't feel like it's a priority transfer now. I could decide not to go for Van Dijk. And if I didn't, Daniel Munoz at Crystal Palace, who of course scored, he actually also got defensive contributions. Could be one I look at, but I still favour defensive contribution type defenders. And I've already got Chris Richards as Crystal Palace defence in my team. From game week, I think 10 onwards, their fixtures look really nice, whereas they've got Bournemouth and Arsenal in the next couple. So it's probably not worth doing that transfer right now. And the other one is Dan Burn. I do like Newcastle defensively. They kept another clean sheet at home to Nottingham Forest in game week 7, and he got an assist. I really like Dan Burn as an option. He does go away to Brighton this week, which isn't that great. I actually don't know if he'd even get into my starting lineup for game week 8 with the fixture that he's got. When I've got Chris Richards and I've got Senesi, maybe he would get in over one of those. But it is probably the best replacement. If I look to sell Tarkowski, I could downgrade him to Dan Burn, and that might even allow me to free up a bit of money if I wanted to and if I needed it. Going back to the top, in terms of midfielder replacement, Anthony Gordon, I really liked him last week and I still really like him. The only concerning thing that I saw from him this week was the fact that he got taken off after 70 minutes, and they do have a lot of fixtures and Champions League games, which he's going to be needed in. So that does concern me a little bit because, of course, they got a late penalty in that game, which Voltemada took and scored. We are expecting Gordon to be the number 1 penalty taker, but he's got to be on the pitch in order to score them. Next up is Enzo Fernandez. I like at Chelsea, particularly if Palmer is going to be out a while. Now, there is this clip going around of after the game where a Chelsea player jumped into Palmer in the celebrations after the end of the game, and you can see him straight away holding his groin. Now, is he playing up to it and saying, oh, you can't do that? Or is it actually an issue and he won't be back anytime soon? If he remains out, Enzo Fernandez in that number 10 is an incredible option and I absolutely love it. The only issue if Palmer is expected back soon, I do probably think he'll play a little bit deeper in some games with Palmer going back into that number 10, with João Pedro leading the line. Next up is Bukayo Saka. I don't have the money or the Arsenal spot to do it unless I was to sell Gyokeres, but I do think he's the better Arsenal pick out of the two. Now, he also was just better from open play. His runs in behind were better. He also scored a goal which was ruled out for offside. And the final one was Ismail Assar. Now, he did get taken off early. We don't think it's an injury, but just keep an eye on that one because, of course, he does have a bit of an injury record already so far this season. Bournemouth at home, I like him. He's a similar price to someone like an Enzo Fernandez. Those are probably the top 4 midfielders that I'm looking to buy. Of course, there are others I'm considering like Minte, although he blanked this week. Lucas Paqueta, he got DEFCON this week and starts a nice run of fixtures. And then in terms of replacement for Gyokeres, to be honest, there's only really 3 names that I'm looking at, which is Bowen, Mateta and Voltemada. If for some reason I wanted a cheaper option, I could look at someone like a Strand Larsen or a Thiago. Strand Larsen walks into a Sunderland game, which I quite like. He has a couple of good games in the near future if you look at the fixture ticker. And Thiago, the short-term fixture is not great, but they do get a little bit better in a few weeks' time. But the ones I'm really looking at are Jared Bowen, Mateta, and Voltemada. Voltemada, it sounds like the Wissa injury is worse than initially diagnosed, so might be out until the next international break, which if Voltemada is playing 90 minutes every week, he looks like a fantastic pick and maybe one I should have acted on a little bit sooner because I thought Wissa was going to be back earlier than it probably will be now. Then it's Mateta. He missed some chances for them against Everton. He isn't playing 90, which is a slight concern for me. And the upcoming fixtures for them are okay. They've got Bournemouth and Arsenal in the next 2 games, but he still scores goals. I'm just not sure with the European fixtures they've got if he's the one for me. And the other one is Jared Bowen. West Ham fixtures start to look really good now. West Ham, we're expecting to turn a little bit of a corner under Nuno. It's probably between him and Voltemada as the best players that I would be looking to buy. generally looking at those transfers, I've got 3 frees and I do have the money to do Ndai, Fernandez, Saka to like Bowen, Gordon, Saka. It could be something slightly different, right? I could go Enzo, Waltemada, Saka. I could go Ismail Assar, Saka, Bowen. I could do a few different combinations in there. I don't think I'm going to act early over the international break. I'm going to take a few days. I'm actually going on holiday. You might be surprised to hear, but international break, always a good time for those of us creating content to have a few days off. But I don't plan on making any early transfers, I don't think. I think there's lots of good options. If I was to get priced out of going Gordon, for example, Sarr and Enzo Fernandez are right there. So I don't think I'm going to go early, but I did tweet about it. Do I think 3 transfers used to sell Ndai, Fernandez and Gyokeres to someone like a Bowen, Gordon and Saka is really worth it? This week, yes, given the fixtures Ndai, Fernandez have, but long term, I'm not so sure. But in terms of general replacement, at the moment, I still like Gordon. Gordon versus Enzo Sarr is quite close. Waltemada versus Bowen is quite close. And if I sell Gyokeres, Saka would be where I'd spend the money. And just to answer a few of your questions, so Spurs players, well, should we be buying them even though their fixtures are getting worse? I think the time to own Spurs players is going past a little bit. I don't have a plan. Like, Kudus is not in my top midfielders to buy just because I am a big believer that fixtures bring form, and the fixtures coming up for some of the other teams definitely look better than if you look on the fixture ticker now. Even Aston Villa, they look a little bit better, but after that, I don't love some of those fixtures for Spurs, so I would be more inclined to advise moving off them than buying new. What to do with João Pedro? So I spoke about him. I just think the upcoming Chelsea fixtures look too good to turn down owning someone like João Pedro. Now, you could go for Enzo Fernandez as a differential or as an alternative, but I don't think you need to be selling João Pedro at the moment. Saka took the penalty. Should we sell Gyokeres? I do think there is a world where Gyokeres still might take the next penalty, but it is enough confirmation for me to say that Saka definitely looks like a better pick than Gyokeres, not just because the penalties. He takes some set pieces. His open play threat looked better in that match as well. So am I going to do it? I don't know, but I definitely think Saka is worth it. And if I had 5 free transfers, I probably would make the switch. Next up is Salah. Salah looks like a little bit of a shadow of his former self at the moment. Do I expect him to turn it around? Yes. Do I think Man United is a great fixture for him potentially to turn it around? Also, yes. But if you're on wildcard, I don't see a world where you look to own Salah with the value until we start to see those returns come back for him. Gyokeres and Bruno, so sort of going back to Gyokeres, lots of you will be looking at Gyokeres and Bruno out for Saka and a Bowen and a Waltemada. I can't put you off this. If it's your only transfers and you've only got 1 or 2 transfers, is it worth all of your free transfers? I'm not so certain. But yes, Saka and Bowen or Saka and Waltemada at the moment just looks better than Gyokeres and Bruno, I agree. Bench boost game week 8, even if it's after the international break, I don't mind it so much. Keep an eye on your players traveling late home from international duty. But if you planned on game week 8, I wouldn't let the fact that it's the international break put you off. And the final one is the best game week 8 wildcard draft. This is a little bit of a teaser. There will be a draft out going on later on in the week, probably Monday or Tuesday, just before I go away. And I will talk about it. I'll talk about whether you want Salah, Saka, Palmer, Haaland, Gyokeres. We'll talk about all of that. We'll put together a few drafts in that video, which will be out later on in the week. And if you want a few more of your questions answered, a reminder that we do have a newsletter with myself, FPL Raptor and FPL Focal, where we do talk about our teams, but we also talk about answering some of your key questions in detail every single week, talk about teams with the best fixtures, all of that. If you want in more detail, just type in wrapped.tips into Google, or you can check it out with the link in the description. You can sign up, completely free version every single Thursday. You get 2 during the international break if you just want to try out the free version. If you like it a lot, you can, of course, have a look at signing up to the premium version, which goes out every Monday. So just going back to my team, 3 free transfers. I'm not going to do anything in haste. I don't plan on making any early international break transfers. I am looking at Gyokeres, Fernandez, Iliman and Dye and going to someone like a Jared Bowen or a Waltemada, a Anthony Gordon or a Ismail Assar or an Enzo Fernandez and Bukayo Saka in the final spot. I don't think it's definite I'm going to do it. I think it definitely looks better for my team in game week 8 because of the fixtures Iliman and Dye, Bruno and Gyokeres have. But I also do think it's possible that I decide to roll my transfer or just use one as an example to do something like Iliman and Dye to a Enzo Fernandez. I can't afford and Dye to Gordon. I could just do Bruno to Gordon is also something I'm definitely considering. That is all my thoughts. Hopefully there's some things to think about for your team as well, depending on what structure you're in. If you're in the position where you're going to wildcard, we will have a video out, I think Monday morning, but most likely it'll be Tuesday morning with wildcard drafts. So stay tuned for that. Have a lovely international break if you're not on wildcard and you're just tinkering. Enjoy a little bit of time off from FPL. We'll be back next Sunday with the main videos, Tuesday wildcard, and then we'll have a little bit of break until next weekend, where we'll be back with a normal re-upload of the general things that we do. Anyway, thank you all for watching. 2,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you're new around here. Drop any questions you have as well. I'm on a train for quite a lot of hours on Monday, so hopefully some time to answer some of those for you. Thank you all for watching. 2,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll be back again very soon.